Hey guys, it's Lauren and Emily here with Mentor Monday. Thanks for joining us. If this is your first time joining Mentor Monday, this is when we are going to answer your career questions. And I'm Lauren McGoodwin, founder and CEO of Contessa, and we're really lucky because we're joined by special guest Emily Schuman of Cupcakes and Cashmere. Okay, so on the off chance someone doesn't know who you are, why don't you tell them who you are and what you do?
In the off chance, guys.
Yeah.
My name is Emily Schuman, and I run Cupcakes and Cashmere, and we're going on almost 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
Which is right around the corner. Our
That is
10-year
amazing.
anniversary. Thank you. It's a little crazy. But basically it started as just a website, and since then we've kind of just continued to expand. We now have 2 books and a clothing line, bedding line, lighting line, and then most recently we launched our own e-commerce.
That's amazing. I feel like when you started this, you had no idea what it was going to come to, but you stuck with it.
I did, and I think that's like one of the more important things. Like, you know, I think that one of those like kind of keywords that you hear so often now is like authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think so much of where that came from for me, it was that there was no career path by any means.
Yeah.
I was just like really bored at my day job. Shout out to all of you guys who are like on your phones, not really paying attention at work. That was me pretty much all the time. I would like finish my work by 10 a.m. and then I was like just looking for something to do that I felt like was using my brain and writing about things that I was inspired by. So yeah, I didn't start it with the idea of turning it into any kind of career. I just was doing things that I loved.
Well, that certainly helps. It's funny, I actually found your blog was one of the first blogs I found, and it was a job where I started at 8:30, I was done at 9:30, and then I went on the internet looking, and that's where I first discovered blogs, and it was amazing, and it was
it's like a whole new world.
Yeah, it was a whole new world. If you want to kill 8 hours a day at work, that's how you do it.
Done.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. So it's great that you've been doing it for 10 years. Most people, like, I haven't done anything for 10 years. I think about that. Like, my life is in like 4-year increments, you know? Like high school, college, life.
Right. I feel the same way. I mean, luckily now I have a relationship under my belt that's been 10 years. My husband and I celebrated 10 years of being together also. So maybe the older you get, the more you're able to like hit those like big milestones, at least the things that you're really passionate about and care deeply about, I guess.
Well, I also think in the beginning you're so like, I don't want to say impatient as if it's a negative thing, but you're really impatient to like make your mark, and after a while I think you're probably a little bit more okay with it taking longer. If you're like, I want it to take longer, but I'm going to do it right.
Exactly. And I think that's the main thing. I hear from a lot of people that are like, hey, I'm starting a blog, like how should I do it and how do I get big? And you know, I think it's one of those things that anything that you do well should take time. Like if you do find overnight success, I feel like that's not the goal, because then you'll kind of slip away as well. Like the goal was never to be like an it girl or someone who's like of the moment. Like that is the furthest from what I am. And I think just like maintaining, and you know, that's really important. If you can kind of stay where you are and obviously make small changes and move forward, then that's the goal.
So most of you probably know this, but with Mentor Monday, you submit questions for us to answer ahead of time. So we advertised this last night, and we're doing this Instagram Live on Career Contessa channels and on Emily Schuman's Instagram. So you can join either of the lives and also ask us questions there. But we had some come in already. So since we're talking about authenticity, we'll go straight to that one. So I thought this was really interesting because this person said, most people filter what they share about their personal life with colleagues and business associates. Since sharing intimate moments of your life is basically part of your job, since you are your brand, how do you balance privacy and professionalism while still remaining authentic?
See how authentic we really are here?
I can't even say it. We'll just move on to the next one.
We know what you're saying. So, so this is a funny question, because anyone who really knows me, I would say that I'm not really someone who keeps things in, like, and this goes from my previous jobs to the one now running this company, is that I'm not really one who keeps things, first of all, I'm like just terrible with secrets in general, but I just feel, but I feel like it's one of those things that I find that the more truthful I am to who I am, just like that's what's always felt right to me. And so as I've gone, and the interesting thing is too, I've gone from, you know, being essentially an assistant at 2 different jobs, to then running a company and being the CEO. So I definitely missed a few like really important steps, which I've learned a lot in these few years. But I would say that I've always just kind of operated under the assumption that just being upfront is the most important thing. And I think because so much of Cupcakes and Cashmere is truly based on my own life, I would be doing myself a disservice if I wasn't kind of being truthful with my employees. And I think one of the things too about my management style is I think that's such an important thing that like, yes, I might come in and I might cry in front of my employees if something really sad has happened, or if I'm feeling frustrated, or if I've had a fight with my mom, whatever it is. I've always just been like very, very open, and I think that kind of allows for a certain kind of intimacy within our company. That being said, there is always a balancing act to be had, and I think one of the things that I've always strived for is to make sure that there is a line that doesn't get crossed in terms of like, look, we're all family here. It's a very intimate office. You know, there are now 7 of us. But I think it's important to know that there are limits, and when work needs to be discussed, that's really important. But that I want everyone to come in and feel like they can talk about things that are going on. Especially because so much of our content then stems from that. That we'll talk about something. I'm like, oh, is there an interesting post here about pet peeves? Because we all have that. You know? So oftentimes when we are just talking, that's when we have the best ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting because you have a company of 7, but even if you had a company of 300, you know, I know you were an assistant before, but like for people who are working in more corporate space, I think this is a question they're always wondering is like, how much do I share about my personal life, or is that too personal? And I think you always know your own, you know, what your boundaries and what you're willing to share and what you're not. And my thought is like, with 300 people, maybe you start slow and work your way into it. Also, you can take your cues from the people around you. Like if they're sharing about their significant others and their babies and whatnot, then go ahead and share that part. If they're not sharing about the fights that they had with their mom, then okay, you don't do that. You know, I always think leaders sort of create the culture around them, and that's like, as a leader, that's important to be like aware of too. So that's interesting.
And I think too, you know, I want to kind of promote an atmosphere and an environment where people come to work. If you've had something really bad happen, or if you're having a bad day, like, let's talk about it, and then kind of like try to move past it. Or if you need some time to yourself, like, you know, especially in a creative job where I think it's so important, like, you're not going to be doing your best work if something is really bothering you. And so I think it's really important, and something that I encourage with everyone to, as comfortable as they are, to share, just because, you know, that's the way that I do it. And so far that's worked well thus far with our 7 employees.
Well, there's nothing worse than being like, I'm walking on eggshells around this person. Like, I know they're upset. I don't know if it's me. And then you find out later, no, they just... I don't know, they had like terrible traffic this morning and put them in a bad mood. So sometimes like sharing is a good thing.
Exactly. It can be really therapeutic.
Okay, so Leslie, I know you've been getting a lot of questions as well. You can hit us with your next one.
So we opened up the floor to Instagram DMs before starting this, and we got a lot of questions about how to balance a career with a family. And I know, Emily, this is something that you deal a lot with. And something that Savannah, who DM'd earlier, asked was, her son just turned 1, and a lot of her friends are stay-at-home moms, but she works full-time, and she says that she experiences a lot of mom guilt. And I was wondering if you could speak specifically to mom guilt.
Yeah, so I will take this one on because you're not yet a mom. But mom guilt is like a real thing.
I'm sure.
And it's also funny just because thinking about it, I hadn't actually really thought much about this, but I don't think I have one mom friend who is a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is. So kind of just interesting that like the kind of people that you're around. But the funny thing is, I got advice about mom guilt long before I became a mom, and it just kind of like stuck with me. And it was actually my friend Amber, who runs a really incredible interior design business, and she was a mom, and she's like, yeah, mom guilt is such a thing. Like, you know, people want to make you feel bad if you're balancing a career and being a mother. And she said, I just don't let it get to me. She's like, I'm an amazing mom. I have such an incredible relationship with my daughter. And I found that so refreshing, just because I think, especially as women, we're so quick to judge and be so hard on ourselves, and especially when you open up your life,
absolutely,
you know, on social media, it's like all kinds of cool comments.
Everyone has an opinion.
I mean, even like last week, someone was like, "Why don't you switch up Sloane's hair more often? Like, I love the top knot, but like, don't you want to switch it up?" And I'm like, "Let me guess, you don't have a toddler, because especially toddler girls, they have like, they're beyond opinionated. She's like a teenager, so it is an interesting thing to open up your life, just because so many people feel as then
they can tell you
they're involved and invested, and so that they, you know, offer their feedback quite often. But I think mom guilt is one of the things that I really just try to like, I really am just trying to get rid of, because ever since hearing my friend Amber talk about that, it's been a conscious decision on my part to not feel guilty about balancing a career, because I find that I'm the best mother I can be because I feel fulfilled and happy, and the time that I have with Sloan, who's 3 years old, is just so focused on her. You know,
you'll never get it back.
You'll never have it back. I have every morning with her, every evening when I come home. Our weekends are spent doing everything together, and I feel like, you know, both of my parents worked all the time, and I have a really incredible relationship with them. So I think, like, if you are someone who is balancing, you know, both a career and motherhood, like, just don't let yourself feel that guilt. Do the best you can. Know that every time that you're at work, be in work mode, and then when you get home, try to compartmentalize as much as possible and be there for your child, so that you're like, I'm the best mom I can be.
Yeah. I have a question. My friend works for a big ad agency, which are notoriously known for very, very long hours, and if any of you work in advertising, you know this. So she had a pretty long maternity leave, which was great. She went back to work, and she just feels like she has to make FaceTime all the time, but her baby's 6 months. Like, do you think this mom guilt is, like, extremely strong in the beginning, and then you kind of are like, I'm just used to you potentially, like, thinking that I should be in the office more, or maybe you think I need to be home more? Like, do you think it gets easier? I'm just curious. Like, she's still pretty new to being a mom.
Yeah, and, like, you have so many hormones that are going on, like, still at that stage. She's probably not sleeping a ton. I mean, again, I think that, you know, again, I feel very fortunate to run my own company, and and we have one other mom within the company. We actually just hired another a girl who's also a mother, so it'll be nice to have that, you know, camaraderie even in the office. But you know, it's funny, because I think that potential for mom guilt is always there. It starts early. I mean, and, you know, probably never truly goes away. So that's why I think so much of the onus is on the mom, which kind of sucks. But at the same time, I think you kind of have to, you have to shift your mindset and kind of put forward what you're willing to do, the hours you're willing to work, and what you find acceptable. If you know, you have a culture within your company that is like, oh, you're supposed to be answering emails at all hours of the day. Like, when I go home, I'm done. I'm not answering emails. Like, and so I think that's been really important for me to again, like, make that compartmentalization a thing, so that I'm focused on being a mom when I'm at home.
And for all of you that are watching, at Career Contessa, we have company profiles, and there are a lot of companies out there that support women who work and support moms. They offer paid family leave, and then resources when you come back, including, like, flexible work policies. So I agree with what you're saying, is, like, also find a company that has moms
100%
and understands what it means to be a mom. Like, if you work at a company and it's all men, like, that could be difficult. Or a company where it's like, I don't know, a lot of startup companies can have this where the average age is 23. Like, there's probably not a whole lot of moms there. So just finding a company that I think respects that too is like a good long-term strategy probably for that 100%. As well. Okay, so we've got more questions on our end. You have some questions too, Leslie. I know you're catching them live.
Yeah, so Jill asked our Facebook group, and this is more of an interview-related question, but I feel like it's one that a lot of people have. When you have an interview, do you give the real reason you left a job, even if it results in having to say bad things about your past employer?
Okay, so never say bad things about your past employer. I'm sure you do a lot of interviewing too, but like when I interview people, this is not the time to like gossip about your past company. And really, if you're gossiping about them, you'll probably gossip about us or our company or something like that. So I like to tell people to always rephrase. So if someone says, "Why did you leave a company?" you can say, you know, I left for various reasons, professional and personal. Here's why I'm really interested in this role. So you can like really change the conversation around to be about why you're excited about this company and that role. Most of the time they're not going to pry too much, but at least I don't pry, but sometimes I will ask that just to see how you're going to answer, to see if you're going to be negative. I don't know. You probably get that question too, or you ask that.
I mean, and I think so much of the interview process is about kind of getting a feel for what kind of person they are. And, you know, an interview is all about being very diplomatic. And it can be like so many like, you know, awkward stages. And so, yeah, I think that says more about who you are
I agree.
Than your previous employer.
Yeah, and I also think that you have to understand, like, if there's a gap in your resume or something like that, you want them to ask this question because you don't want them to assume and make up their own storyline. You want to be able to say, like, well, actually, I left for this reason. I don't know, I wasn't getting that project, or that project ended, so then I moved on here. Like, I actually like hearing the story that people tell. And that's another thing what you're saying is, like, how can you tell a story? Can you answer this in a way that is not going to be gossiping and is still effective in why you're here and why you want this role? So
exactly.
Hopefully that helps. I know interviews are always tough. Like, but you know what? They're tough don't you think they're tough for us too? Like, when you interview people, aren't you a little nervous too?
Oh, for sure. That's the thing. It's like when you remember back to like when you were in school, I was always like nervous in a new class. I was like, I want the teacher to like me. I want to be seated in the right place. But it's like the teacher is probably really nervous as well, especially in college when you had like huge auditoriums of kids. So it's like you just never can see the other perspective until you're there.
I know. It's funny. If you ever, and I know you do a lot of public speaking, but when you all of a sudden realize, like, actually all the eyeballs are looking at you and like you're expected to perform, you're like,
nightmare.
Okay, trust me, I think this is harder for me than you. Definitely harder. Okay, I'm going to take another one that came in through Career Contessa, which was all about management mistakes. So this person's a first-time manager. You're a manager now. What's been your biggest mistake and how have you overcome it? Because we all know that people are learning how to manage all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, people go to school just to learn how to become managers. And it's something that I've learned as I've gone, because again, you know, I've done this for 10 years, but when I left my other full-time job, I was 24 years old and had still just been like entry level, like an assistant. And so I literally had no management experience prior to
because you're 24, that's normal.
Totally normal. But you know, I think my biggest thing in running my own company and like having so much of it based on my own experience, it's such a deeply personal thing. So for me, a lot of it was just like letting go of the reins a bit, just like, and trusting in people that they're going to do it and they're going to do it well. And knowing too, if things aren't done perfectly, that's a great learning opportunity. I'm certainly someone who can be a bit of a perfectionist and I want to get things right the first time. And that sets like pretty like unrealistic expectations. And so one of the biggest things that I've tried to both teach my employees and also myself is that not whether you're going to make mistakes, but that mistakes are going to happen, and then it's just really what you do with them. That really tells about who you are as a manager and how they are. You know, that it's going to happen, acknowledge it, apologize, and figure out how you're not going to have that same thing happen again.
I don't think people bring their best self to work when you're leading by fear or intimidation. Like, inspiration, 100%. If it doesn't work out, saying, why didn't this work out? And I also think, I think for entrepreneurs too, this happens where it's like you do it all yourself a lot in the beginning, and then you have to delegate. And like, just because they do it differently than the way you would do it doesn't mean it's bad or anything like that. It's a matter of like, you both seen different sides of that perspective, which is obviously why diversity in a company is super important, because you want to see the other sides. I know I think my biggest management mistake is sometimes being not focused enough with them. So like telling them to like, this is our big overarching goal, but like they want to come to work and they want to own something. They want to be really good at their job, right? Like these people, it's great. You want people that want to be good at their job, but as a leader, it's like you have to make sure they understand what that is and how it contributes to the business. And I definitely have not articulated that at times, and it's like you said, like I wasn't a manager before. I'm learning as I go, and always learning from the mistake and being like, all right, I need to that one should have been a little smoother, you know. But yes, to anyone who's a first-time manager, I think you just do it, you know, and you get better at it. And like you said, there are people that go to school. You can hire professionals to help you as well. Read a lot of books. Have you read any management books or podcasts or anything like that?
I've definitely, you know, dabbled here and there, but I think more than anything, it really comes down to open communication, and that goes both ways. So that you kind of have that, you know, set up by monthly, bi-weekly meetings to check in with people, and you know, again, it's all about how you are speaking with one another. So making sure that you have good systems in place so things don't slip through the cracks, or if there is an issue that goes either way, make sure that there is like a, you know, a forum where you feel comfortable talking to one another, just so that you can then address things so that they don't get you know, too big.
Giving and receiving feedback, I think top skill of like to be a successful human in this world.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Leslie, how about another one from your side?
Yeah, so this is a question that we've received both in our Facebook group and in DMs from Stephanie and from Jessica, and it's, what's the best way to explore or shift careers when you're older, i.e. beyond internships?
I'll go based off of my side of this, because I have definitely shifted a lot of so I started my career working as an admin assistant, then I was a recruiter, and now I'm running Career Contessa. So if you didn't know the background, basically I've just started my career over 3 times and made it more difficult than I needed to make it. But I think, I know internships always feel really young, but what I really recommend is informational interviews. So if you know that you want to shift into influencer marketing or something like that, go find someone who works in that industry, works for a company that you love, and see if you can have coffee with them, or see if you have 20 minutes of their time. I'm sure you get asked this kind of stuff all the time, so it's like, maybe don't pick Emily Schuman as the top person you need to have a phone call with. Maybe you start with someone that works at Cupcakes and Cashmere instead. Or like, I remember when I wanted to be a recruiter, I reached out to 70 recruiters on LinkedIn. I didn't know any of them. 30 of them got back to me, right? And so I always say, kind of going back to like the management mistakes, like you put it out there, you try, like, don't be afraid of no. Don't be afraid of someone saying like, no, I can't talk to you. It's like, you know, and so I would say, if internships aren't a fit because you think you're too old, go for informational interviews. And I'm sure you've hired people who are transitioning careers, and I always like when people are transitioning careers. I think it's a good thing to have someone who says, I've been doing this, but I want to bring this expertise to learn how to be an expert in that, and not have it be like, oh, I'm just going to roll this skill right over here and make your company work exactly the way I was doing it before. So
yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think that, you know, you're never too old for a career change. I think it's really important to find things that you're passionate about and excited by. I agree with kind of informational interviews and networking. I mean, it's such a buzzword that I almost like hate using, because like networking like has just, there's like such a stigma. It's like such a negative thing about
like a transaction. Like, I'll do this for you and you do this for me.
And we've actually written posts about networking. I literally asked my best friend to write a post for us, because it is definitely not my strong suit. I've never been great about asking for things, because I'm like, I can do this, I can do it all by myself. And I've only found, like, the older I get, like, just how crucial it is to ask for help when you need it. And, you know, that there are ways to kind of pay it forward, if you will. Once you've kind of gotten help and advice from someone who's helped you by networking, like, either reach back out to them at one point to offer help with anything, or then, you know, kind of pay it forward to the next person that you can help. I think the most important thing, if you're kind of looking for a career change too, is become like really knowledgeable. Like, read 100%. As much as you can and find out about the industry, you know, figure out your strengths, figure out your weaknesses to kind of come up with whatever your next best step is. And then, of course, like, reach out to people, send a follow-up, thank you note, you know. But again, like, so much of a career change, or, you know, getting the real job that you want, comes down to being like extraordinarily proactive. Absolutely. Nothing is going to happen and just like fall into your lap. So you just need to be like, you know, that whole saying, like, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like, you kind of need to, like, just be, like, annoyingly persistent. Obviously not when you're, like, reaching out to people. Like, just following up on my email. On doorstep. But, like, just, like, finding out as much information as you can is just, you know.
I always say, too, like, get creative. Like, okay, so the job you want didn't land in your lap. It doesn't ever land in your lap. But get creative on how to become an expert. Online learning, classes, talking to people. If that person says no, go find another person. You know, like, there's not one type of influencer marketer. There's not one type of recruiter. There, you know, there, like I said, 70 to 30. That means I had 50% of the people I reached out to told me to buzz off. You know what I mean? So I agree with you. I think consistency and persistence, and with networking, I think it almost becomes a skill. Like, not can you network and build new relationships, but can you maintain them? Like, those are the people where you're just like, whoa, hats off to you that you have maintained these relationships for years.
And one of the tricks, again, not necessarily one that I always follow, because I'm like not particularly good at this, but my friend literally, she sets reminders in her calendar to, like, just reach out. And I think they're like once every year, twice a year, so that you're just reaching out to someone via email. Hey there, you popped into my head. I hope you're well. Thinking of you. Are you still in San Francisco? Whatever it is, just to kind of maintain that relationship. So again, that they feel comfortable reaching out to you, and then vice versa at some point.
I always pick a holiday if you want a trick. I always pick like New Year's, like Don't pick a religious holiday that cannot work out well. I always pick like New Year's or 4th of July and be like, hope you had a great New Year's, yada, 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 yada. Because I always do feel like people are like, but what do I say? And you're like, well, here's a nice icebreaker that everybody can go. But I like the calendar reminder just because holidays, I don't know, that can get busy.
I also feel like people are never mad if you're just like, I was just thinking of you. I hope you're doing well. Like that. I'm never like, they were thinking about me. You know, it's like
they must want something from me.
It always goes well. Yeah, and that's the other nice thing, that it's like a nice reminder to reach out when you don't need a thing. Because then you're not just like setting up this relationship to be completely one-sided. You're just like, hey, just wanted to say hi. You know.
I think the trick here is people need to stop talking about that and just start doing it. Just do it and don't think about it too much, and then do it again and again, like what your friend with the calendar invite. So that's genius. Okay, so we have time for one more, or?
Yeah, we have about 5 more minutes.
Oh, awesome.
So we have time for maybe one or 2 more.
There we go.
Jessica just asked, is it ever okay to apply for a job that you aren't fully qualified for? Or on the flip side, should you be doing that?
I love this question.
Yeah, I always say yes, and if you know the data about women, it's that women don't apply for jobs unless they meet the qualifications almost 100%.
And then some. Probably.
Yeah, and then some.
Overqualified.
Yeah, basically, they're like, I have a PhD in this job, and so I would say always apply for jobs, whether you quote unquote are qualified or not. If you're interested and you're passionate about it, I say go for it, and then have your storyline be about why you want that job. I mean, when I became a recruiter, I had never been a recruiter before, but I convinced them I was the right person because I was like, this is how passionate I am about recruiting and this company, and that was worth gold. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't hire that experience or that enthusiasm, and of course you could go get someone else that has the experience, but I would always say, and it sounds like you agree, like, do it.
Yeah,
apply.
I mean, I think obviously, like, if we're talking about like a doctor, you don't want someone who's like,
look,
I, for the most part, I'm like pretty good at doing like stitches on myself, but like, I think for the most part, like with a lot of different careers, there's some wiggle room.
Yeah.
I think there's probably, you know, if someone is asking for 5 years of experience of writing or this or that, like, I think you should probably have some.
Yeah.
And like, you know, then, you know, talk to why you would be a good fit. I think that's the main thing, that it really comes down to like the personality fit. You know, like,
absolutely.
I've taken informational interviews where they're like, we do not have any openings. We're not interested in anyone. And I'm like, right. But like, if you get your foot in the door, that's the most important thing. And I've literally like convinced people to hire me just because I'm like, but look, I will work really hard and I will make it happen. So I think that's, you know, that's the most important thing is, and like you said with like women, like, don't have imposter syndrome. You know, the thing of like, oh, I'm not good enough for that, or I don't think I can, like, believe in yourself. Like, one of the best tips that my old boss when I was at Condé Nast gave me was that if you go for an interview and decide like halfway through the interview, you're like, this is not for me, this is not a good fit, still cross through the finish line. Kind of like in a race, like you run through the line, and, you know, make sure that you tell them how much you appreciated their time, and, you know, and I think those kinds of, that mentality of like, go for it, and then decide if they make the offer, then you can be like, okay, that wasn't a perfect fit, but I think
don't take yourself out of the running before you've even gotten there, right?
Exactly. So you might decide like it's not even a position that you're interested in, but I'd say, like, you know, don't sell yourself short. Like, you can offer maybe 8 other things that they hadn't even considered that were important to them.
I also find, I was talking to someone the other day, and she was like, I want to apply for this company, but I've already decided they're probably not the right fit because their commute is here and this is here and that's there. And I'm like, you actually have had a full conversation of talking yourself into this job and out of this job without me saying anything, you know? And it's like, sometimes I think planning is great, thinking about your next move is great, but sometimes it's like, you have to just let things go, and like you said, like, cross the finish line, be strong about it, and then consider it. You know, don't cross that bridge before you get there. And I don't know, maybe it's something about women are really good at multitasking and planning, but I do think, like you said, the imposter syndrome is like this fear of like being rejected, and like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They say no.
Yeah, that's it.
Move on.
Done.
Yeah, so I mean, you're both women who are really, you've found paths that you're really inspired by and passionate about, but what do you do if you can't figure out what field or career path you want to pursue and you feel a little bit lost?
Yeah, I mean, again, having been in a job where I started at 8:30, my first job at school, I started at 8:30, I was done around 9:30 or 10. One day they had me feed paper through a printer, so I can definitely tell you it was not my dream job. So I was pretty lost. I think the best thing I did is I engaged with the world around me, and there's this great quote by Marie Forleo that she says, clarity comes from engagement, and the minute I heard that, it was like, every neon light and bell and whistle went off in my head. I was like, I need to engage with the world around me. And so I started having informational interviews. I started talking to more people. I would go to events, and I actually almost think it was a little bit easier because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was sort of open to a whole bunch of ideas. And then my second piece of advice for that is, so first, start engaging, whatever that means to you. But my second tip is focus on a company. Stop worrying about what is this exact job title and go find awesome companies. We were talking about companies that support women at work, or if you know you want to be a mom at some point, a company that has working moms there. Like, sometimes I think it's easier to figure out your next career move if you just start working for a company that you love and you admire, or maybe it's a site that you visit every day, whatever it is. Like, I think target companies can almost be easier to focus on than the quote unquote dream job, which we all know is like, does not exist. I'm sorry, we've all been sold that, and it doesn't, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think if you are feeling lost, like, I think focusing on what would potentially make you happy. I mean, it could be something as simple as being like, I really want to work with my hands, or I want to be working with kids, or whatever it is. Yeah. And then just like start doing your research and kind of see what other jobs. I mean, I assume too that like maybe there are like career counselors out there that you can like go and talk to someone, and like they can help like figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are and help kind of like parlay that into your future next career. But I would say just like do your research, kind of like, again, like remember, you know, the things that matter most to you, and then kind of go after them.
We have a great worksheet, and I'll put it in the comment section when we put this replay up on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll send it to you guys too. It's called Your Career Ideals, and it basically asks you like, what type of company do you want to work for? What do you like working on? How big should the team, like, you have to start visualizing kind of what you want, and then it will help you. I think when you start writing these things down on paper, they're no longer just these ideas floating around too. So I haven't done it yet, but I've been really into the idea of making a vision board. So I've also think that that's a good place, especially when you said like, do you want to do something with your hands? Like, as someone who works with a screen all day long, I do think that it would be great to do something like a vision board, a physical with my hands, that you never know, like something can come out of it. So again, the whole like clarity comes from engagement. Engage, whether it's something with your hands or having those informational interviews. But yes, it will. And I also think maybe we're all sold the thought that like, this is going to be an aha moment. Like, you're going to sit on the couch and this aha moment was like, I'm going to build a blog, and then I'm going to turn it into a book. Then I'm going to, you know, like, that's not how it works. And you're probably thankful that that's not how it works, you know? Like,
oh, very much so. Because I would have had like enormous doubt. And there have been even moments within my career, like when my, the book publisher reached out and they're like, hey, we would love to have you write a book. And I was like, oh, I think they meant to send this to someone else. Like, again, just like always second guessing myself. And so yeah, I mean, I think the number one, and like, not to like burst any bubbles, but it's like, there's not like that perfect job. And like, a lot of people kind of feel like run down and like uninspired in their job, but like, kind of really kind of figuring out how you can potentially make the most in your current job to like get yourself like a little bit more excited. I completely agree. Or that there maybe is a shift that you can take that, to do something that'll make you happy. But I think like if I could pick up on like any kind of like overall theme here, it's like being proactive. That you need to go for whatever it is that like you're passionate about. You can't just like sit back and be like, I hate my job and like I really wish this would happen. It's like, well, make it happen. Like, don't be that person who's passive, who just wants other people to 100%. Give you the answers. I think in this day and age, and I sound like so old, where I'm like, this generation.
What a mom.
But it's one of those things that I think so many people even reach out to me on a daily basis, and they're like, hey, I'd like to start a blog. What should I name it? What should I write about? How do you do it? And I'm like, no. Like, there was no kind of like Cliff Notes version of anything. And that's the case with like, God knows what the next thing will be. So I think the most important thing is like, if you're inspired, if you're feeling, in a rut, like whatever it is, be proactive and go after whatever it is you want.
Yeah, absolutely. So tip of the day, be proactive.
Yeah. Without like being one of those like motivational posters with like an eagle where it's like soar and like like motivational, but like I think
spread your wings and soar.
Spread your wings, you guys. Yeah. But I think it is one of those things that just like, it's easy to kind of become complacent and just feel like everything is going to fall in your lap, and if it's not, then it's not worth it. But like, that's the furthest from the truth, because I think with anything, like, it takes the most work. That goes with like, you know, like a career, motherhood, maintaining relationships. You have to work really, really hard at the things that matter most.
And I know when I started having informational interviews and I was in this job I hated, it actually really re-engaged me in life. Like, I left every conversation super jazzed. So like, even having a small thing like a 20-minute conversation or 20 minutes where you read someone's website where they tell you step by step, or you watch a webinar or an online class. Like, we're so lucky that we have so many resources out there today. It's amazing how much that can kind of change your attitude, and that can pick you back up, and you're like, all right, I'm going for it. And I think it's great to have that stuff along the way, because there is no such thing as instant success, and you really don't want that. You want the ebbs and flows of life and careers and all that great stuff. So, well, this was wonderful to have you. Thank you for joining our Mentor Monday. Your advice is spot on, and it's actually really nice to have different perspectives on Mentor Monday, especially because, you know, career and life really do mix together. And so as most of these answers were not just straight career advice with that. So thank you again. And I hope, so just so you guys know, the replays of these are available for 24 hours on our Instagram and also on Emily's Instagram. And then we'll upload it to Career Contessa's YouTube and Facebook. So any of you that had questions or couldn't catch it, you can catch it there as well. All right. Thanks, guys.